I am here today to talk with you and a sound healer about music as medicine. International composer and musician and sound healer Kimba Arem is here with us today. Thank you, Kimba, for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Your personal journey is quite amazing. You are working in the realm of ancient healing. This is ancient wisdom coming through the form of instruments. How did you start your journey?
It's kind of a very long story. I loved music as my kind of own personal healing, but I loved nature and science, and my parents were very academic. I was a medical doctor, so I kind of started to go in that direction as I got into college. And so then I went into the sciences. I was studying molecular biology, and I was pre-med, and I figured, well, I can just work with people one-on-one healing. And as I was in my last semester in college, I had this experience, which I didn't know what to call it at the time. And this is the very long story part that I won't be able to kind of go into too much detail with. I came across a book called Life After Life by Raymond Moody, and I realized that what happened to me in this experience was a near-death experience. At the time, I just knew that turned completely upside down through this thing that happened. I was in my final semester in college, and this experience showed me that there was no way I was going to continue on the path that I was on. Because when you go back to the light or the source or your true nature, which is what happens when you die, it's a big wake-up call. It's a big awakening. For me it was, and it's a reminder of we're here for a purpose, and we have to find that purpose. And Joseph Campbell would say, follow your heart, and then you have to do only that. And this was shown to me. I was 21. This was in 1992. And I was like a baby again, but in a fully grown body, and I had no idea what to do with my life. So all I knew, though, I was given two things. One was that I had to finish my degree, even though I clearly wasn't going to use that because I saw that my path was not going to be medical school. But I was also given that I was to be the voice, and I had no idea what that meant, or a voice, or the voice. And I was a very shy, and I kind of still am, but I wasn't one who spoke up or talked in front of groups or would sing or anything. Within a month of this experience, I was walking to class. I was going to organic chemistry. I just had one semester, and I was, graduating with a top of my class in honors. And I was like, I got to finish this. Spirit told me I got to finish. And I was walking to class, and I saw this lady sitting on the grass, and she had an instrument lying next to her. It looked a lot like this one, a little shorter and straighter, but it was a wooden long instrument. I had never heard or seen anything like this before, but I was magnetically drawn to it, like a moth to a flame, kind of magnetically. So I went up to her. I said, "What is that?" And she said, "It's a dream pipe." And her partner who made them called them that. He was making them out of the agave stock that grows in Arizona. I was at the U of A in Tucson. And so I said, "Would you play it for me?" And she played it. And that sound was like a key. Literally, it unlocked something inside of me. And when I heard that, it was like, I don't know anything else except that sound is the only thing that makes sense to me right now. In this space I was in of I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm like a baby, and that sound is the most touching thing in my life. And so I got one the next day. I could play it almost right away, and I can circular breathe within a week. I actually woke up one day out of the dream time and could circular breathe, but it wasn't by any means perfected. It was years of really perfecting the techniques of playing and circular breathing, but I was accessing that. And what I realized was that that sound was connecting me back to this place that I had gone in this near-death experience. And at the time, I still didn't know what it was. I just knew that, for a while, as I studied New Age spirituality, I thought, well, maybe I'm like a walk-in, or I felt like a totally different person. Now I look at it a little differently. I feel like more like that was the beginning of the veils being removed of who I really am and why I'm here. And it's been a long process. It's been 22 years, and it still continues. But what that triggered in me was back into my heart, and using the didgeridoo as a way to clear the channels from all the thousands of meridians and chakras and nadis, the subtle channels of my body. Using the breath and using the sound I was realigning myself back to my divine original nature. Still in process. But I absolutely see the didgeridoo as that tool. And the Aboriginals consider the didgeridoo to be their connection to the dream time, which is where the ancestors are, which is this parallel dimension that we go when we die. And I knew none of this. All I knew is that I needed that sound. And so by connecting to the sound, I was healing myself. And so that's just a little snippet. Like I said, there's a whole lot more to this, the aspects of this story, but that got me started along my path of what eventually blossomed into more and more sound as medicine, sound therapy, and that was destined to be my path. So
it's amazing that one of the first instruments on the planet was that key that unlocked you. And when we look at cymatics and we see what sound is actually doing on a cellular level, it makes sense what was happening within you. It was like your whole being was being restructured.
Definitely.
So the music that you work with, you've done some fascinating things. You work with Andrew Weil of Sound Healing. You've done numerous CDs with him. And you've also done ceremony with Dr. Emoto. So what does this mean then for water? Your water has been photographed by Dr. Emoto. So that is proof positive of what you're doing and the effect that it has within us when we heal.
Yeah, I feel we just actually finished a movie on water, my partner and I, and it's now finally complete after 3 years. So I've learned a lot about water through not only living in Kauai for 10 years, which is where all of my sound therapy blossomed. It's the wettest place on earth. It has the most rainfall of anywhere. And I grew up in Arizona, so I wasn't around a lot of water growing up. But then when I moved to the islands, first I moved there to study acupuncture, and then I ended up getting to Kauai and studying, moving into sound therapy. But through living in this magical island of Kauai and all the water there, it guided me to travel the world. And I ended up going to Japan, doing a tour there. And I was taking, I had all these crystal bowls, the big size ones, and was putting water inside the bowls. And during the concerts, everybody lies down, and I play all these different instruments. And at the end, we do a big healing prayer of the group when we're coming back into the circle, into the water. And then we drink the water at the end. And I do these in my circles here in Boulder, too. But so one of Dr. Emoto's, this was in the early part of 2000, one of his scientists who does the photographing came to the concert and took a little sample of the water from the bowl and brought it back to Dr. Emoto's lab. And the crystal that came out was heart-shaped.
Wow.
And this is on my album, Peace Journey, the picture of it. It's also on my website. But Dr. Emoto had never seen a heart-shaped crystal because they're all like hexagonal or they don't form crystals at all. And so that started our connection, and we started to work together. And I brought him to Kauai to do some talks, and that was, people in Kauai are very much into water, so there was huge turnout. And he felt very at home there. And there was a place there where, on the island of Kauai, where the river meets the ocean at this sacred heiau, and it's considered the most sacred location in all of Polynesia, not just in the Hawaiian Islands. And women would go there to give birth. And so we did a global water healing ceremony there with Dr. Emoto and this huge group of people. And I really believe that working with sound, as you mentioned, cymatics, is one of the most efficient ways to restructure patterns in our body, because we're mostly water. 70% of our body is water, and 70% of the earth is water. So we can heal ourselves and the earth and restructure it back to its divine blueprint, which we know is similar to The structure of the space-time is a similar hexagonal shape, but it's a little more complex. Nassim Haramein talks about this in his mapping out of the space-time structure. Water mirrors that, our cells mirror that, our DNA mirrors that structure, and so does our heart chakra, has that geometry, which forms our Merkaba, which is our energy body. So we have the fractally same repeating pattern of what the divine blueprint looks like. Also, it looks like the Om symbol, which is, I have it engraved on that didgeridoo, it's the Sri Yantra. The oldest, one of the oldest mandalas from India is considered the sound of creation. This is what formed the universe. And so it's kind of like nature is simple. It just kind of repeats the same pattern on different scales, and we can use very simple technologies like toning or our voice and certain kind of harmonic structures in music to realign ourselves, the water in our bodies, back to our divine blueprint. And that's what health is, and peace and balance and all the things that we know that we want in our heart to live in on this planet.
Well, it's wonderful because the work that we do and that you've done with Dr. Emoto and the healing of the waters, it really is a way that we can take what seems like a big problem in the 3D realm and fix it. We have radiation in the ocean, but this is something that can fix it as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I would like to work more with people, scientists, musicologists, people who are on the edge of working with subtle energy medicine as a think tank of like, how can we use our combined, collective, unified mind of knowledge to face the problems that we have going on environmentally, especially. And, you know, I think about radiation a lot, and my soul's home is the Hawaiian Islands. It's very close to Japan, and I very much feel like we need to look at everything again as energy and vibration. And on that level, we can address it more efficiently. Just like with health, you know, with medicine, if we look ourselves as physical bodies, like machines, which is the allopathic, you know, that's the path I was on. I was going to go to medical school. This is very mechanistic, Newtonian, polarized to the left brain, which I was at that time, model of the universe. And it's just such a limited bandwidth perspective of what's really going on. And so I think we live in the times where that shift is happening. We're leaving the Kali Yuga, this dark age of materialism, and going back into the golden age. And so we have to midwife the new systems, they're old systems really, but remembering, and let the darkness compost itself. So the new growth of, we are energy beings first and physical beings second. And therefore, if we work with the physical matrix first, it's not as effective as if we go to the template, which things like sound, light, prayer, intention, all of these things woven together, they affect the template and filter down into reality. So things like radiation, it's just energy. It's just really fast energy. We could even interface consciously with that frequency of light. Radiation is a light energy. Maybe it can activate dormant codes of our DNA if we interface with it consciously rather than fear it or pretend it's not happening. You know, there's some middle ground. It's like if a monster's chasing you, you have to face it. And then it becomes your ally. So we can use anything that's happening, like the Jedi way. You know, it's like you use the Force, which is the blueprint of the universe, which I think sound is absolutely one of the most subtle and powerful ways for us, incarnated in physical form, to do that, to access this template, and to use it consciously. It's not just entertainment. I don't do anything for entertainment musically. I do it with intention, coupled with the sound, and the sound is the carrier wave for that prayer.
With intention, and the sound is the carrier wave for that prayer. Beautifully said. So let's have a little healing session, music as medicine, with Kimba.
So this is a 4-chamber flute. It was invented by a man that I knew when I was living on Kauai, and he was just like this elf that kind of lived in the woods, and he was a genius he could make all kinds of stuff out of bamboo. So he invented this flute. It's 4 chambers. He decorated it, burned these fractal patterns in there. And then I don't even know what happened to him. He disappeared. No one knows where he is. He's hopefully on the earth somewhere, but maybe he never even existed. Sometimes I think, was he just like some kind of person from the fair? Yeah, or something. It just, I don't know what happened to him. So it is difficult to replace. I've tried to have this replicated by a flute maker who was really good and was not successful. I had these made in, one is in 440 and one is in 432 tuning. And the same with this set. These are in A440, A432. And so 432 is, maybe for people who aren't familiar with tuning, how we tune our scale, the notes of the scale, is relative to a constant frequency. So 440 hertz is what we're using right now, in globally actually, to the note A. So 440 hertz or cycles per second, cycle wavelengths per second, is considered the note A. However, it's a somewhat arbitrary tuning because there were other times in history where 432 was used, or 444, or there's different standards that have been used. And that's helpful because if you play with other instruments that are tunable, like a stringed instrument, for example, you can tune it either by ear, or these days we have a tuner. You can match up all the musicians, like an orchestra or something, to play in the same tuning. Because if you're off key, things sound a little off. So when I discovered 432 about 12 years ago, I started to check my instruments. I learned that 432 is an ancient tuning that was used by cultures that were much more connected to the earth than we are now. And if you calculate the other notes relative to 432, we find that all the other notes come out to be significant numbers, such as the exact height of the Great Pyramid in Giza, or the exact number of years in the precession of the equinoxes. And these are, or certain constants in math. Every single other note comes out to be a significant number. In 440, none of the notes calculated. There's a calculation you do with math to get the frequencies of the other notes. In 440, they are meaningless. There's no significance to the other notes. So 432 is very interesting because all the other notes have meaning. And then we find out, well, other ancient cultures believed that music could tune us in to the harmony of the spheres, the matrix of the planet, how nature operates, that music was our way to tune back into nature and the cosmos. And so, therefore, we have to be in tune with nature. So if our tuning is a little bit off, I kind of think of it like our calendar system. If our calendar is a little bit off, like the Mayans say, the calendar is very important to tune into the measure and movement of the universe, how we calculate the cycles of our days and time. And so our calendar's a little bit off, our music's a little bit off. So my feeling is if we go back to these original tunings, that we can reharmonize back with nature and the cosmos. And I found that by checking the notes of my indigenous instruments, which are not tuned deliberately, they all end up pretty much to be in 432. We also put our piano upstairs in 432 tuning, and most pianos are in 440. And I actually started to channel piano songs in this tuning, and that's never happened before on any other piano. And they're on the last few CDs now, these songs that came through. They had a name, they were fully formed. It was just like channeling. And I really feel it was the tuning, because I've never composed piano pieces like that in any other way. So I'm very touched. I'm not saying there's other schools of thought about tuning, and I'm not saying this is the only way, but I think it's a very powerful way to work with sound. And so what I have is bowls in 432 and 440, which is the standard tuning. And I thought, well, if we have a bridge between them, maybe it'll help people to slowly tune back into this harmonic of nature. And it just so happens that the number of hertz between the bowls is 8 hertz, which is associated with the alpha brainwave pattern. And when we hear this binaural beat, this beat pattern that's created as a result of 432 to 440 is the 8 hertz, our brain entrains to this binaural beat pattern, and it helps us to go into the alpha state, which is a meditative state. And I work with binaural beats on a few of my albums, encoded in the songs to help people go into alpha and theta. And my last CD actually goes down into delta, the one designed to midwife people through birthing or dying process. So this is a very powerful and subtle way to work with sound to entrain the brain to these harmonics. So I'll just demonstrate them.
Pulsing. Quartz crystal is what most of the Earth's mantle is made up out of. And we know that crystals are used in like quartz watches for the piezoelectric effect, which is when you put electricity into a crystal, it creates movement. So we know that they conduct electricity, but they also store information. And this is these crystal bowls were originally used to grow certain kind of quartz crystals. You can actually grow them for the computer industry, and because they use these chips in the components of the electronics. So that's how crystal bowls started. They didn't start as musical instruments. They were like the byproduct of the industry, and then people said, oh, they make sound and we can turn it into its own industry, which they've just totally blossomed now. So we also have quartz. We not necessarily quartz, but we have crystals inside our bones. Apatite is the crystal structure that we have inside our body, and all crystals are informational carriers. They store information, and you can program them with intention. You can program them with other things, like in the computer industry does. But I like to use them for creating field effect. And while you're playing the crystal,
and you can put water. This one has water in it, so that will go into the water as well. But just the sound alone is sending out a waveform, which is an informational carrier. And on that carrier wave, you can send information, like that you send with your consciousness. So that's the, Dr. Emoto's work was a lot about intention and how even just the energy we put toward water, which is like a liquid crystal. Water is we can see as a crystal when it's frozen, but most of the time on Earth, water is in its liquid form, but it is also a crystal, which holds information. So, these are very simple technologies to use for healing. Some people, if they have an ailment, cancer or a degenerative disease of some sort, many people are starting to work with the crystal bowls and program their own water. They put water in, maybe put some flower essences, or even just your own prayer and visualization while you're playing the crystal. As you're playing, it's kind of like that image of the witch, with the cauldron, but this is white magic. This is for healing. It's aligning ourselves with the powers that we naturally have. We've just forgotten how to use them.
Kimba, Arem, that was a magical journey. We hope that you've all felt the incredible energies. I am really glad that you followed spirit and you came into this beautiful world of music and left cellular biology, molecular biology behind. Thank you so much. You have some beautiful music that you'd like to share with us, so tell us about some of these offerings.
Well, they are all similar in intention. They're to bring people into the place that they bring me into, or the music. When I play music, it brings me into a place of peace, connectedness to spirit, relaxation, and just kind of helps my mind to not be so distracted by all of my worries and thoughts and stuff. So all the music that I make is intended for that kind of thing. People use it for sleep, for yoga, for meditation. The last CD I did called Crossing the Great Waters. Water's a theme in all of my CDs. It just is such a big part, not only how they're named, but the sound water recordings that I've done. But something about I'm a very Taoist person by nature, and I studied Taoist acupuncture school, and I realized that water is my biggest teacher. So that's kind of infused in all of the albums. But the last CD that just came out, Crossing the Great Waters, was inspired by my near-death experience, and it was intended to midwife people through the bardos or through the midlife stages that we go through, can be death, it can be birth, it can be a divorce, it could be a spiritual awakening, which mine was kind of that, and a death, and a death to an old way, but it can actually be a physical death. So this CD has been used for people who are in the transitioning out of their body, and for babies who have been born. And I encode in most of the CDs binaural beats, which this technology is kind of like what we talked about with the bowls. The brain entrains to this frequency, and that creates a kind of standing wave pattern that the brain finds peace within. And 8 hertz is the one we used here, that's the alpha, but some of the theta frequencies, like 4 to 7 hertz. This CD actually goes down to delta, so a lot of people do use this one to go to sleep because it goes down to 3 hertz. So there is technology woven into the instrumentation, but most of it is focused on all these kind of instruments and others, and animal sounds, actual live recordings of different animal sounds from nature and water and thunder, and because to me that is very healing, all the frequencies and the harmonics of the natural world, which sometimes we get a little depleted from living in houses and cities. We don't hear the sound of the wind and the birds chirping and the sound of water and all these things that bathe us in these naturally healing frequencies.
So all of this music is encoded with beautiful sounds and animal sounds and really wonderful energies that help us align back within. So Kimba, you also do sound healing sessions with people, and this is a remote session, so the sound can carry over the airwaves, over the phone, over Skype, but then you also record the session. Tell us how this really helps someone on their healing path.
I'll just refine the terminology I use for what I do. I call it sound therapy. I see myself as a sound therapist because, the word healer has been kind of crusted over with like, I'm going to heal you, and that's the feeling I get from it. And what I've learned through 20 years of doing this and on studying other forms of subtle energy medicine and shamanic healing, is that we each have an inner healer. Just like if you cut your finger, like I did here, it heals, your body knows what to do, but someone else can band-aid it or stitch it up or whatever, but you do the healing. So I see us each, if we're a therapist of some sort, that we're creating an environment for that person that we are working with to access their own inner healing ability. And maybe we provide some overflow of universal energy, like I do Reiki, I'm a Reiki master, and it's not my energy. And we can all do this. We all have this capacity to just channel the universal, infinite source of free energy through our heart. which is the ultimate free energy generator. So that's how I look at what I do, is like I am providing the environment. In this case, it's mainly sonic. I use the frequencies of sound, mostly audible sound, coded with intention. And my intention is to be of service, to help that person, whatever their intention is. So there's all these things happening within the field of my intention and that person's intention. And that's what directs the frequencies. Intention is like a prayer. It's how we work. And that's the basis of sound therapy. So when I work with an individual, that can happen, and it's also non-local. So my work working with groups came out of individual working with one person at a time and playing the instruments in their field, in their subtle energy bodies. But if the person's not with me, we can use a surrogate energy form, and I record it, and then that person can also be on the phone listening to it, but the phone doesn't convey sound very well. It's a very narrow bandwidth of frequency, so they're not going to get the full experience. But I am an engineer also, so I have very high fidelity ways to record all the instruments and then mail and put it on a CD and then mail it to that person, and they can use that as often as they like, for going to sleep, for meditation, for stretching and relaxation and that kind of thing.
And it's designed exactly, specifically for them.
Yeah, that's the intention. So first I talk to the person, connect with them, ask what their intention is, for them to get clear on it. And there may be multiple levels of that intention. And we know that we are affected quantumly by non-local physics. That's how. So intention, I think, is one of those. Like where prayer can affect things non-locally. We're working on that level of resonance when we do this kind of work.
Thank you so much for offering this to everyone.
Thank you. It's been lovely to spend the afternoon with you.
Sound Healing with Kimba Arem, international composer, musician, and sound healer. Thank you, Kimba, for being here today.